So, hello everyone, and welcome to our Salon on Women, Children, and ADHD, a nutritional approach to symptoms management, hosted by Maca Health. My name is Dr. Mary Pines, and I am the Chief Scientific Officer here at Maca. I'm here to introduce you to Maca and to welcome you to this safe learning space. So, thank you for being here. We are excited to host you in learning about all things nutrition when it comes to women and children experiencing ADHD or ADHD type symptoms. So before we get started, just a few quick notes on Riverside, the platform we're using to present to you today. So firstly, Riverside keeps you anonymous. We'll be recording the event, but neither you nor the chat will be recorded, so you will not be on video. If you want to ask a live question, the only thing identifying you will be your name. So if you want to change your name to maintain your anonymity, please feel free to do so. Secondly, if you're on your phone and in portrait mode, but you want to be in landscape instead so the slides are bigger, be sure to unlock your phone and flip it sideways. And lastly, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat on the right side of your screen, and Helen will get to them at the end. We really hope you enjoy this salon. I look forward to speaking with you at the end of the presentation, so please do stick around, and there will be questions too. We've got some good ones. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dr. AJ Volk, Maca's Member Experience Manager.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Mary. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Macaverse. We are so excited that you are all here to learn all things functional wellness. It is June 19th, 2024, and as Dr. Mary said, I'm Dr. AJ Volk, the Member Experience Manager here, and I'm going to be your co-host for this event. So over this next hour, we're going to be diving into the topic of nutrition assisting with ADHD symptom management, specifically in women and children. So you have an idea of a layout for this event. We will do a 45-minute presentation from Helen Perks. Woohoo, we're so excited. And then we'll move on to a Q&A. There are some questions integrated throughout the presentation, so have that chat up and ready. We want you to answer. We want you to be involved. We're here not only to learn, but to be involved and learn together, so that's really exciting. But let me tell you a little bit more about Helen before she pops on here. Helen is a health and wellness strategist, nutrition and lifestyle medicine practitioner, and a registered nutritional therapist with a bachelor's of science in nutritional medicine with over 10 years of clinical experience. So we are so lucky to have her. Helen has studied in the Institute for Functional Medicine, and her mission is to empower and enable people who are seeking a more effective approach to optimizing their health. As a result, they can live the life they should without interruption for their well-being. And now I'm going to hand it over to Helen for her presentation on women, children, and ADHD, a nutritional approach to symptoms management. All yours, Helen.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I am so pleased to be here. I'm so excited to share some insights around ADHD and symptom management through nutritional therapy and functional and lifestyle medicine. It is just after 5 p.m. here in the UK. I don't know what time it is where you are, but thank you so much for tuning in and taking part. And as Amanda said, we're going to make this interactive. So absolutely get that chat box ready, get those fingers ready, and we want to hear from you because it will make the whole experience better for all of us. So without further ado, let me introduce to you what we are going to cover in the next 45 minutes. So we're going to explore ADHD, nutrigenomics, the gut-brain axes, and nutritional management strategies. And this session basically aims to show how diet and lifestyle interventions can help with ADHD symptoms. Now, there are quite a few slides actually. They're very graphic, if you like, and I don't mean that in a sexual way, but there is a lot of detail on some of these slides, but you will get a copy of the slides after the webinar, which means you can look into them into more depth because we just don't have the time to cover all the information on each slide during the next 45 minutes. So what is ADHD? It's a neurodevelopmental disorder with symptoms like inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity, as you can see here. And it varies from person to person, affecting both children and adults. And the reason it varies is that we are all made very differently from a genetic perspective. So early diagnosis and intervention can really improve the quality of life with those diagnosed with ADHD. And as I said, the core symptoms include inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. If you look at the pie chart here on the right, we can see that 7.1% of children have been diagnosed with ADHD, 2.5% to 5% of adults, and 2.8% in older adults. Now, ADHD often presents in females, leading to delayed diagnosis. It presents differently in females, which leads to delayed diagnosis. So you can see here on the left that males, their symptoms are more of hyperactivity, impulsivity, compared to females where we're looking at inattention and daydreaming. And the late diagnosis really can affect academic performance, social relationships, and self-esteem. So I want to ask my first question here. So please, like I said, do answer in the chat. Have you or someone you know experienced challenges with an ADHD diagnosis? And what were some of those key difficulties that you or they faced? So just answer in the chat there, and we'll wait for a couple of minutes to see what you share with us.
Perfect. And while you guys are answering, Helen, I do have a question for you. What are the different symptoms in children versus adults? Because I've seen males versus females here, but I'm sure there's some differences between children and adults too.
Yeah, there are. So, for example, in children, we're looking at hyperactivity, impulsiveness, and attention, which I've already spoken about, but also trouble sitting still, following instructions, and completing tasks versus adults. Again, they can experience inattention, but also restlessness, disorganization, and also difficulty managing time and responsibilities, which I've seen, a lot of females at university having issues around these areas. And they may also struggle, and that I'm talking about adults, with maintaining relationships and employment as well. So yeah, they're the two differences between ADHD in children versus adults.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any?
Thanks for explaining that.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we have some. Yeah. We have some timelessness, we're having some brain fog, we're having some productivity, like ebbs and flows of productivity, like being really focused versus not being able to focus. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing right now. How does that sound to you, Helen?
Yeah, I mean, that's just classic. Absolutely. Classic challenges that people have with ADHD. And of course, we'll talk about more challenges as we go further into the presentation. So thank you for that. Okay, so as I've said, ADHD is, can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, so great. ADHD, as I've said, is diagnosed later in girls than boys, and more often in boys than girls. And as you can see here from the two different timelines, we've got the male timeline of diagnosis, D stands for diagnosis, and the female timeline. You can quite categorically see that the research that was based on male and female diagnosis really highlights that boys are diagnosed between the ages of 5 and 10, compared to women, which is between the ages of 20 and 30. And that really comes down to the fact that girls' symptoms are less obvious and more internal, therefore leading to that late diagnosis. And of course, that undiagnosis, as I've already said, can absolutely impact on education, social lives, and really does continue into adulthood. So ADHD often co-occurs with other psychiatric comorbidities. So what does that word comorbidities mean? So essentially what this means is that ADHD coexists with other conditions like mood disorders and anxiety. You've got oppositional defiant disorder there, and conduct disorder as well. And females actually are more at risk of mood and eating disorders existing alongside ADHD. Now, you can see here in the top row the ADHD challenges, which include emotional dysregulation, cognitive problems, social impairments, and risk-taking behaviours. So, like I've said at the beginning, you can explore this slide in more detail after the webinar when you get your copy of the slides. Now, females face additional challenges like self-esteem issues and higher risk of anxiety and depression. So my next question to you is, which ADHD related challenges that are documented here on that top row do you find most surprising or are most relatable to you? So just share those thoughts in the chat if you can.
Great. While you guys are throwing your thoughts in the chat, I'll ask Helen another question. How is ADHD diagnosed in females differently from males?
Good question, Amanda. And it's often diagnosed later in females because their symptoms are less obvious. Females may exhibit more inattention and internalized behaviors, like I highlighted in the previous slide, rather than the hyperactivity compared to males. So yeah. This is why we've got this delayed diagnosis.
Makes sense. Like when you say it makes sense, right? But reflecting in the moment, I'm sure for some people it's like, oh, I wouldn't have known that back.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people aren't aware that
diagnosis.
People aren't aware that there's this huge difference in diagnosis and symptoms as well.
Yeah. We have a few answers here, Helen. We have reckless driving. I would have thought more like distracted driving, risk-taking behaviors, difficulty maintaining relationships. It seems like people are picking the surprising ones. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is it. They are quite surprising, aren't they? Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing that information with us. And I just want to move on now to the common referral triggers. Now, as you can see, they are listed here on the left-hand side in the purple box, and they include academic difficulties, social isolation, and emotional problems. Again, do delve into this into more depth after the webinar once you receive a copy of the slides. And these triggers prompt ADHD assessments when symptoms are significantly impacting on daily life. So, of course, we start with, observing those symptoms, which could be, coming from people like parents, teachers, and family members. We go all the way through this referral process, which I'm pretty sure is very similar no matter where you are in the world, until you get that diagnosis. And then, of course, you come down to the monitoring and support. And this is what Maca Health is here for. It's here to support people with ADHD when you have had that diagnosis. So now I want to introduce you to nutrigenomics, and this may or may not be a new word to you or a new concept, but hopefully I'll be able to explain exactly what it is and how it helps with people with ADHD. So nutrigenomics is it basically studies how our genes interact with our diet, And it allows us as clinicians to provide targeted nutrition and supplementation. But we can also identify from looking at our genes whether we have sluggish genes in terms of making dopamine, which is an important neurotransmitter when it comes to managing ADHD symptoms, or genes that make a lot of dopamine, or genes that impact the clearance of dopamine. So what on earth is a neurotransmitter? So a neurotransmitter is a chemical messenger, and there are several that we focus on when it comes to ADHD, which I'm going to share with you in a minute. So those chemical messengers help different parts of the brain to connect and communicate with each other. And it's really important that we ensure that they are balanced when it comes to ADHD. So our genes influence how those neurotransmitters, those chemical messengers that help the brain to communicate, like dopamine, the genes influence how they are cleared, how they are produced, and this really can affect ADHD symptoms. And you can see here on the slide that 50 to 80% of ADHD is genetic, and only 20% environmental. So it's really important to consider our genes when we want to manage ADHD symptoms. Now, I don't want you to panic when you see this slide. I just want to give you an overview of the neurotransmitters that we focus on in terms of ADHD. Now, this actually is a test result from a nutrigenomics test. But I want to show you the neurotransmitters like dopamine and how because it plays such a significant role in mood, attention, and behavior. And there's different pathways, related to these or connected to these neurotransmitters. And you can see here that there are some genetic variations that can affect the neurotransmitter levels, its activity, and its influence when it comes to ADHD symptoms. So nutrigenomics testing is a really great tool for identifying genetic variations, because then that allows us as the clinical practitioner to target your therapy, produce a targeted protocol, I should say, in terms of nutrition and supplemental strategies. So dopamine, so the neurotransmitter that I'm going to focus on, because I won't focus on all six because we just haven't got the time. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter, the chemical messenger that helps the different parts of the brain to communicate. It's crucial for reward, motivation, and motor control. Now, nutrients like phenylene and tyrosine, vitamin C, BH4, magnesium, and PLP are essential for dopamine synthesis. Now, phenylalanine, easy for me to say, phenylalanine and tyrosine are amino acids, and amino acids are building blocks of protein. So it's really important that we have a good amount of protein in our diet. Vitamin C, everybody's heard of. BH4, you might not be familiar with. BH4 is something that the body produces internally, and actually it's usually low in people with ADHD, and we need a good level of protein for BH4 to be able to be created within the body. We need a good level of vitamin C, and we need a good level of folate. So think about those leafy greens. And PLP, vitamin B6, or vitamin B6, I should say. The PLP means it is the active version of B6, and that means your body, there's just one less step for that B6 to be available to your body. So curcumin, quercetin, and zinc, or curcumin, this helps with dopamine clearance. So curcumin is a compound found in turmeric. It's also anti-inflammatory. So think about sticking a quarter of a teaspoon of turmeric in your tin tomatoes or your scrambled egg or whatever else that you like to eat. And you can incorporate it into many of your meals, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Quercetin, antioxidant, you found a good quantity of quercetin in apples, and zinc will also help modulate dopamine clearance. So you can begin to see why it's so important to have a nutrient-dense diet. So my question to you is, have you heard of nutrigenomics before? And if you have or you haven't, did you expect it to involve understanding how your genes affect those really important chemical messengers, those neurotransmitters in the brain, and how you respond to nutrients? So just type a yes or no and any of your thoughts into the chat.
Great. Okay, everybody, let's see you in that chat there. Helen, how do nutrigenomics work exactly? I know you're kind of explaining it to us, and that's great, but how do you get your test? How you test it?
Yeah, I mean, again, another good question, because I work with this, on a daily basis, and I forget that people, don't know what the process is. So first of all, if someone chooses to, or they're recommended to take a nutrigenomics test, then they will receive a test kit at home, and then they swab the cheek, and it goes off to the labs for analysis. And I want to say at this point that the labs do not share your DNA with any other company, and they only keep your test results for 3 months. That's really important, because people can be worried about that. And once the lab analyzes the results, what we're looking at is how your genes respond to nutrients and produce and clear that dopamine and other neurotransmitters. And that enables us as clinicians, again, to produce a targeted therapeutic protocol. So I hope that answers your question, Amanda.
Awesome. It does. And then I guess everybody's different, right? So I guess for me, are there any genetic variations in ADHD? Or are they the exact same in everyone? How does that work?
Yeah, so no, it's not exactly the same for everyone, which is why I highly recommend doing a nutrigenomics test to identify whether you have those sluggish genes or not. But yeah, in terms of dopamine and serotonin pathways, which we have highlighted here, you're looking at variations in genes such as DRD4 and DAT1, and they can influence the levels of dopamine and serotonin, GABA, melatonin, and activity of those neurotransmitters as well.
Gotcha.
Hope that's answering your question.
Thank
So
you.
how would you
yeah. How would I, sorry?
How are we doing in the comments? Have people heard of nutrigenomics before?
Oh, in the comments, yes.
Yeah.
We have a few no's. We have no's, but it would make sense to them. Yes, interesting and complex. Yeah, variation, I'd say. Variation of answers.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I don't think nutrigenomics and the nutrigenomics testing is well known, actually. So yeah, and it's one of my favourite subjects. So I absolutely had to share it with everyone today. So now we're going to go on to understanding ADHD and the gut-brain axes. Now, the gut and the brain, these two major organs, have this bi-directional relationship, and they're communicating between each other all of the time. And this communication, it can influence behavior and brain function. So imbalances in the gut can absolutely contribute to ADHD symptoms, because, as I said, gut health impacts brain function and behavior. And gut inflammation, it can impact ADHD. I can't even speak. So chronic gut inflammation and microbiome imbalance can worsen ADHD symptoms. So again, take some time to delve into this slide and look into this subject area a bit more. So I don't know if anyone kind of knew about the gut-brain connection and the function. Let us know in the chat, yes or no. Did you know about the connection between gut health and brain function? And maybe some of you did. Maybe you just didn't realise that it was so important in terms of influencing behaviour and brain function, and how that is impacting on ADHD symptoms.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of this one before. It's a really interesting one, and I wish I knew more. Another question for you, since we're talking about the gut and the brain and things that we need to put in our gut that are good for us, what are the best foods for gut health and ADHD management? I'm sure people would love some specific insights there.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, of course, there's lots of coverage now in the press, isn't there, about microbiome and the gut-brain axes. But things like fruit and vegetables, think about eating that rainbow. So what do I mean by that? For example, take scrambled eggs if you're not allergic or intolerant to eggs. And how do you make that scrambled egg dish into a rainbow? So don't forget that white and brown are also colours. So you can add mushrooms, for example. Get those herbs in there. And I think in America you call it cilantro, we call it coriander or flat leaf parsley. So you've got a bit of green, and of course they're packed full of vitamins and minerals as well. You can have some tomatoes, you can have bell peppers. Get your 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric in there for your curcumin to help support the function of neurotransmitters and bring down any inflammation. So yeah, fruit and veg, eat the rainbow. Whole foods, probiotics as well. Feed that gut microbiota with natural yogurt, sauerkraut, kefir, prebiotics, bananas, flax seeds, almonds. So yeah, they're the kind of foods that I would definitely feed my gut microbiota to support optimum gut health and help with ADHD management.
Awesome. If you're taking notes, I'd say definitely highlight "Eat the Rainbow." I think that's a good quote for today, everybody.
And the thing is, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, Amanda. You know, you can start off with whatever you like. It could be bolognese, it could be chili, it could be lasagna, whatever it is. But you know, try and think outside the box. Go down the fresh food aisles in the supermarket and just look at all those colours and what's in season as well, and add those to the dishes that you already love.
Yeah, that makes sense. Making it convenient for you and fitting in your life, right? Like it doesn't need to be too complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
So okay, the chat. A lot of people are saying yes. I'd say 80% are saying yes. Somebody mentioned, but not specifically to ADHD, which is interesting, but I think it's generally a concept that people understand, that the brain and the gut are related. So that's good.
Yeah, and interestingly, it's the gut that's dominant. It has, you know, it domineers the brain, if you like. And of course, in functional and lifestyle medicine, we refer to the gut as the second brain. So yeah, really important that we support that bidirectional relationship. Okay, so now. I don't know, you know, how much people know about the connection between ADHD and celiac disease, but there is a connection, and you'll see a QR code here. So feel free to scan the QR code, take a screenshot of the infographic, because behind this QR code is the study that supports this infographic here. And essentially, my message to you is, go and get screened to rule in or rule out celiac disease, because screening for celiac and ADHD patients, I believe, is absolutely essential, because gut inflammation can worsen ADHD symptoms. And not only that, you know, if you've got and by the way, celiac disease, I really need to explain what that is. It's an autoimmune condition whereby people are affected by gluten, and gluten is a protein that's contained in wheat, barley and rye. So it's essential that you avoid gluten if you have celiac disease, because it can affect the way you absorb nutrients as well. So if you are thinking about going to your doctor or your consultant now to rule in or out, or taking your child, whether or not you have celiac disease, then, you know, take a screenshot of this, or scan the QR code, and really provide that evidence to your healthcare team that studies show it is essential that somebody with ADHD should be screened to rule this in or out for better management of celiac and ADHD symptoms. Okay, so strain-specific probiotics, they can also help with reducing inflammation and improving gut health. So we mentioned here lactobacillus and bifidobacterium that can help lower inflammation and also strengthen the gut barrier, because what we don't want is larger than normal protein molecules seeping into the bloodstream, and then when that happens, it can manifest differently in different people. And of course, it can exacerbate ADHD symptoms. So we have to really ensure that we are feeding that gut microbiota and that we're feeding it with the right strains. So as you can see from this slide, probiotics stabilize gut microbiota, which actually influences hormonal balance and emotional regulation in women. And in children, it's been proven to support neurodevelopment and improve behavior. By neurodevelopment, I mean the development of the brain. So, nutritional management of ADHD symptoms, again, another favourite subject of mine. So many people have said, what on earth has nutritional therapy got to do with ADHD? So now I'm going to show you. So diet is absolutely crucial in managing ADHD symptoms. We need a balanced diet. We need to remove additives. We need to include omega-3s and ensure optimum micronutrient intake. And obviously, as I've just shared with you, it's really essential to support gut health. So I'm wondering if any of you out there have already made dietary changes to help manage your ADHD symptoms. So if you have, let us know in the chat and let us know what you did and how it did improve your symptoms.
Awesome. We have a few questions popping up in the chat. And another one here. Are there any specific diets to manage ADHD symptoms, Helen? Specifically, like the ones that you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation?
Yeah. So again, I will remind people that this is never a one size fits all. So there isn't one particular diet because, we've got to go back to the nutrigenomics, looking at our genes, how we respond to certain nutrients and so on. But so essentially what I would say is whole foods. I will go back to eat that rainbow. That's one of the most important things, because if you focus on eating a rainbow, it takes out the overwhelm of, oh my God, I've got to include these fruits, these vegetables, and of course, some people don't like certain fruits and vegetables, so you can't be too prescriptive. So that's why it's easier. And like I say, reduces overwhelm by recommending people do eat a rainbow at every meal. So whole foods, rainbow, lean proteins, really important. And equally important is to avoid processed foods and artificial additives, and identify whether you have got any allergens. And of course, that's something that at Maca Health we can help people to do.
Yeah.
Good question.
And we do have a quick question also in the chat. If a parent has ADHD and a child has allergies, is it worth testing for celiac? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, you don't lose anything by doing that. So if the parent has ADHD, the child has allergies. Yeah, if the child has allergies, do you know exactly what they are? Again, maybe you can look at implementing or following an elimination diet. But I think it's worth both, parent and child ruling out celiac disease, because again, celiac disease doesn't present the same in everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, what we're hearing in the chat, I think more people are learning from this presentation. We don't have that many people with their own experience with nutrition. I wonder if this is a point where people are trying to educate themselves. Like, I feel like this presentation is really going to help people to be able to answer this question later.
Oh, brilliant. Good. Yes, I'm sure it will.
Yeah, I love that.
Because like I say, so many people have no idea that there's a link between nutritional therapy and ADHD. And of course, just look at the slide that, I shared where I was explaining about how we need certain nutrients to make those chemical messengers in order to help the brain to communicate, different parts of the brain to communicate with each other. And of course, where do we get those nutrients from? And it's from food and supplements, obviously. But again, and that's something, well, I will leave that for later. There was something I was going to share with you, but I will come on to that. So let's move on to addressing food allergies and intolerances. Like the question was asked there, because it is crucial for managing ADHD symptoms. And of course, some of the common allergens are gluten, dairy, soy, and artificial additives. So a gluten intolerance is completely different from celiac disease, because celiac disease is an autoimmune condition. So there are different approaches to both of them. Of course, eliminating gluten is the same. But yes, and as I said, answered that question, consider an elimination diet and work with your healthcare team for an accurate diagnosis. And again, at Maca Health, we recommend elimination diets, but we only do that after we have taken an in-depth case history, because we don't just recommend them to everybody. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. This is all about personalized nutrition and personalized medicine. So vitamin D, well, it's not just a vitamin, it's also a hormone, and it is absolutely vital for neurodevelopment and can lower the risk of developing ADHD. So again, you'll see a little QR code here, and hiding behind that QR code is the study that this infographic is based on. So we want to make sure that pregnant women have adequate levels of vitamin D in their third trimester to reduce the risk of their child developing ADHD. And of course, we can get vitamin D through sunlight, which most people know about, through fatty fish and egg yolks as well. So again, feel free to scan the QR code, take a screenshot of this slide, or wait until you receive the whole set in an email after the webinar. So omega-3 fatty acids, essential fatty acids, fish oil if you like, are essential for brain health and can reduce impulsiveness in children with ADHD. So the QR code is a bit faded on this slide, so I'll definitely make sure that that is replaced with a new QR code, so that when you get the slide you can scan that QR code. And of course we can see here the amount of EPA and DHA that was used in this study that is hidden behind the QR code. And you can also see that the study shows a significant improvement, so a reduction in impulsiveness when children were prescribed omega-3s. Now, one thing that I will say is, even though I am sharing with you the nutrients that support the management of ADHD, what I don't want is for you to go running out there and buy those supplements willy-nilly. The reason I don't want you to do that is supplements can contraindicate with any medical condition that you might already have, plus any medications, pregnancy, breastfeeding. So be really careful and make sure that you are, consulting with your healthcare team before you go ahead and do this. And one more thing I want to add about fatty acids as well is that you really need to stop taking them 2 weeks before any elective surgery, because they can thin the blood, and so can things like anesthetics. So just be really careful not to go running out there and of course and buying supplements, because there are toxic levels as well. So even though we think things are good for us, if we have too much of it, that can also produce symptoms. So using a targeted approach, like getting tested to see whether you need certain nutrients or not, is probably the best way forward. Okay, so another nutrient that some of you may or may not have heard of is Q10 ubiquinol. So you might have referred to that as CoQ10. Again, I've got the wrong teeth in today. And Q10 ubiquinol helps produce energy in cells and combat oxidative stress, supporting brain health. So what is oxidative stress? So let's take an apple, for example, cut it in half. Now you might squeeze lemon juice on one half and not on the other. So the half that you haven't squeezed lemon juice on becomes brown. and rusty. So that's what oxidative stress is. So what do we need to do? We need to eat plenty of antioxidants. How do we do that? Of course, we eat that rainbow. Now, a study, and you'll be surprised to hear that the study is lurking behind this QR code here, showed over 76% improvement in patients with neurodevelopmental disorders using Q10 ubiquinol and vitamins E and B. Now, ubiquinol is the active form of CoQ10 versus ubiquinone. So this basically leaves your body one less step that it needs to perform in order to receive the CoQ10, or absorb it, I should say, metabolize it and absorb it. And here we have another study, an infographic based on the study hidden behind this QR code that just basically highlights the benefits of micronutrient supplementation for children. We're talking about vitamin C, amino acids, which are building blocks of protein, magnesium. So you can begin to see just how important it is to ensure you optimize your nutrient intake on a daily basis, particularly when you're looking at managing ADHD symptoms. Now, we are going to be talking about environmental factors and clinical detox, and I'm talking about a clinical detox, not those detoxes that you see advertised every January after the new year full of shakes. So we're talking clinical detox. We're talking about looking at removing heavy metals and toxins, which can significantly improve ADHD symptoms. And we're going to explore in the next slide the methods in which we can identify and remove those toxins. So you can see here on the right hand side some of the sources of those toxins. And again, when you receive a copy of these slides, then you can look into this into more depth. But things like water pipes, if you're living in an old house, check that they are not lead water pipes. And instead of plastics, use glass containers. So environmental factors like heavy metals and pollutants, like I said, can worsen ADHD symptoms. So identifying and minimizing exposure to these toxins is absolutely crucial. And here there are different ways in which you can do that. And again, at MACA, we do offer tests that can identify whether you have got heavy metals in your system. So urine tests, we can look at chemical exposure and hair analysis as well. So lifestyle adjustments is equally as important as improving your diet. So using things like air purifiers, like I said, avoiding plastic containers, replacing them with glass containers, and use natural cleaning products. And there's a whole host of suggestions out there right across the internet in terms of using natural cleaning products. And supplementation, support detox pathways. I don't know whether I've already mentioned, I don't think I have, but there are 2 phases of detox, phase 1 and phase 2, and each phase requires a different set of nutrients. So we want to make sure that we are supplementing properly with the right nutrients, with no fillers or binders, and practitioner strength as well. We want to be supporting those detox pathways in order to support our brain function and, of course, then managing our ADHD symptoms. Now, clinical detox programs can improve cognitive function and reduce ADHD symptoms and enhance overall health. So consider environmental factors in ADHD management, and absolutely, seek advice for clinical detox programs. Now, you'll see at the bottom of the slide that I have shared with you several references to support this approach, but I also want to emphasize how we at MACA use scientific evidence, robust scientific evidence, to relay the messages that we are sharing with you. Now, I've got another question for you. Are you aware of any environmental factors in your surroundings that might be impacting your ADHD symptoms or your child's ADHD symptoms? So share your thoughts in the chat. Let us know.
Yeah. put those things in the chats. Okay, so I guess a question that I have is what natural ways are there to detox? Because we're detoxing, right? And we don't want to put more in our system by trying to detox. So what are some natural ways to get that detox started?
I mean, there are several natural ways. Antioxidants, again, just think about the rainbow. So if you're eating that rainbow at every meal, you've ticked that off. Fiber, again, lots of fruit and vegetables, whole foods. Hydration is really, really important because we want to make sure that we are excreting those toxins through our urine, but also through our stools. And of course, keeping hydrated helps the stools move through the gut. And of course, I'm just going to quickly share with you here. We've got a model of a human cell. And inside the cell, we've got a set of organs. And, we've got our cytoplasm here, and that's the fluid part of the cell that houses all of these organs. So it's really essential that we hydrate in order to support the cytoplasm. And lysosome, that's what I call the organ inside the cell, is basically the bowel, and it helps us poop out the toxins from each cell. So hydration is really important when it comes to supporting those functions. Regular exercise, so we want to be sweating those toxins out as well, and saunas does the same thing. And milk thistle, and of course it's a supplement. Again, the caveat, don't go out there and just go and buy these things. Make sure they're not contraindicating with any medical conditions and medications that you're on. So yeah, they're a few examples of how you can naturally detox. Hope that answers your question.
Awesome. Yeah. Helen, do you mind taking the cell and putting it up to the camera for us? I know some of us haven't seen the cell since like 8th grade biology, so I'm sure a little refresher would be lovely.
Okay, yeah.
We saw it, but not. Oh yeah, there we go.
Can you see that? Yeah. So basically, with my clients, we name that cell, and I've had names and everything from little Elvis to Bob and so on and so forth, because we just focus on nourishing that one cell, because and that reduces overwhelm, because if you're nourishing that one cell, then cells make tissues form organs, so therefore you're nourishing the whole of your body. So so can you see the organelles inside there?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Oh, so cool.
You've got
I love this little model.
You've got the mitochondria here as well, which is the powerhouse of the cell, and of course that needs nutrients such as magnesium and iron. So all these reasons why we need a nutrient-dense diet, and to get rid of those nasty additives and preservatives. So are there any answers in the chat? Reference environmental factors.
We actually have a question. Somebody mentioned drinking water quality. I'm sure that's different in every place of the world, but this person's asking specifically, I'm concerned about drinking water quality even after filtration with a Brita. Do you have any recommendations or advice for people concerned about water quality?
Yeah, well, it is a problem, and it is a particular problem in the UK at the moment with the amount of sewage that's pouring into our rivers and so on. But again, it depends on your budget. So you can get a water filter that comes in the mains, which is usually on, where it comes into the house and sits underneath your kitchen sink. But that can cost a lot of money. And you can go from, that end of the spectrum all the way down to the Brita water filter. Yeah, it's again, not a one size fits all. It depends on how much.
Yeah, whatever fits into your life.
Yeah, what your budget is. Yeah, but definitely don't. Yeah. My recommendation is not to drink tap water, no matter where you are, really, and just to have that extra filtration.
Good to know.
Okay.
Agreed.
Dr. Mary agrees. I love that. Good. We got two really, really qualified people saying it. So.
Oh, good. I'm pleased about that. Yeah, it's a real problem. It really is. Because, of course, we've got hormones and all sorts going into our water at the moment. As well as heavy metals and so on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is move on to the last part of the webinar. And this focuses on how we at MACA personalise testing and our approach to testing. And it helps us as clinicians to tailor interventions based on the individual's needs. So again, that goes back to, personalized medicine, personalized nutrition, definitely not a one size fits all. So we're looking at nutrigenomics, which obviously I've already mentioned, looking at analyzing how genetic variations affect responses to nutrients and dietary habits, and of course, how well you are synthesizing, making those neurotransmitters, the dopamine, the serotonin, which I'm sure many of you would have heard of as the happy hormone. Hormonal testing. So at MACA, we use Dutch, the dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. Absolutely brilliant test for assessing hormone levels that influence ADHD symptoms. So not just sex hormones, but also our stress hormone like cortisol. And of course, you can either go to your doctor or your consultant and look at whether what your thyroid hormone is doing as well, because all of these hormones impact our brain function and ADHD symptoms. Gut microbiota analysis, so the comprehensive stool analysis test that we use at MACA, that helps us to evaluate your gut bacteria, whether it's balanced, whether it's deficient, whether there's an overgrowth of yeast, whether there's parasitic activity going on, inflammation, what's going on from an immune perspective, because 80% of your immune system actually resides in your gut. And going back to what I said about the serotonin, the happy hormone, 90% of that is in the gut. Only 10% crosses that blood-brain barrier. So really crucial to optimize our gut function. And at MACA Health, we use the 5R gut protocol with our clients as well. So we're looking at removing anything that's irritating to us. We're looking at replacing any nutrients that we may be deficient with, repairing to ensure that we don't have that leaky gut that's going to affect our brain function. And then we're looking at re-inoculation. So that's where the probiotics come in to play, and then rebalance. And food sensitivity testing. So again, that identifies foods that may trigger or exacerbate ADHD symptoms, and where necessary, we'll prescribe an elimination diet to help you on your way. Customized treatment plans is one of the benefits of personalized testing, basically. It helps us, again, to tailor interventions based on your test results. And of course, if it helps us, it's going to help you. A targeted nutritional support. So, we look at any nutrients that you may be deficient in, and then prescribe the right dose, because that's the other thing that I want to highlight is not all supplements are equal. Binders and fillers, I was just looking at supplements the other day actually in the health food store, and it was B12 complex, and there's a huge range in the amount of, for example, B12. With the cheaper supplements, there was less B12 in there. So, we're looking for quality supplements, and of course that's what we recommend is the practitioner strength supplements. And of course you've got to have those in the right dose as well, and take them at the right time of day. And we want to, one of the benefits of personalized testing is to prevent those comorbid conditions, those other conditions that might coexist alongside ADHD. And additional tests, well, the heavy metal testing, which I covered earlier, and the comprehensive nutritional panels and allergy testing. Okay, so that's it. That's all from me. I hope you have enjoyed the presentation, the webinar. I hope you have been able to take something of value from this and be able to implement it straight away. And if you want any more information, then please do reach out to us for support, email us, and then please scan the QR code there, because we really would appreciate your feedback. So whatever time it is, wherever you're tuning in from, thank you so much for doing so and for interacting with us. Amanda.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Helen. Yeah, thank you so much. We have the QR code here. We also have a link that we're going to throw in the chat. Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much, everyone. Lovely session. Lots of things popping in the chat there. I hope everybody got some good notes, but I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Mary to kind of give us some final thoughts and notes and announcements moving forward. But Helen, amazing. Learned so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Helen. That was fabulous. I learned a lot, and very grateful for all this amazing info. I hope that all of you out there learned a lot too. We did have a bunch of questions we wanted to get to, but with 4 minutes on the clock, I'll just make a couple of quick announcements here, and we'll let you go. So first, thank you so much for joining us. Please do fill out that questionnaire. We really appreciate it. And if you love this content and you want to see the slides to dig in deeper, in the next few days, we'll be sending out an email with a recording of the presentation and a copy of Helen's slides, along with the opportunity to book a free consultation call with us. If you feel like you have questions or concerns, if you're experiencing symptoms, or you simply want to learn more about precision wellness or ADHD, please get in touch. We're happy to have a call with you one-on-one and talk things through to see if we can help. And finally, we look forward to seeing you at our next salon, which is on July 21st, featuring the brilliant and lovely Dr. Henri Roca, who will be sharing with us on the functional medicine approach to anxiety. There was a few questions in the chat on anxiety, so we hope to see you there. And details to come on our social channels on that and in our newsletter. So please follow us on socials if you don't already. Our handle is at Maca Health Tech. So with that, I'll say one last thank you so much, Helen. Really appreciate that. It was really fascinating, and hope everyone got a lot out of today's session.
It was a pleasure.
Great. Awesome stuff, Helen.